Good day, two-wheel friends. Zack here with RevZilla, and welcome to another episode of Daily Rider, where we learn about motorcycles as we ride. Our guest today is the Kawasaki Ninja 500. That is a twin-cylinder sport bike. It weighs a little under 400 pounds and costs a little more than $6,000. Now, it wasn't that long ago, you might remember, that I was sitting here telling you all about the Ninja 400 and what an excellent little motorcycle it is and how it's evolved over the decades and blah, blah, blah. All of that applies to the Ninja 500, but because this is such a popular, useful, and fun motorcycle, we figured it was worth taking the time to talk through the ways that the Ninja 500 is the same as the 400 and the ways that it separates itself both from the Ninja lineup and the rest of the small sport bike world. So, with that, let's ride to work. Giddy up! Alrighty, before we get going here with this Ninja 500 daily ride, a special spring reminder that May is Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month. And while we here at RevZilla always want you to ride safe, this May we're kicking off the Airbag Save campaign at RevZilla.com/airbags. You can learn more about all the latest innovations in rider safety by clicking on the link in the description of this video. In the meantime, thanks for watching and ride safe. Okie dokie. Kawasaki Ninja 500. Let's see if I've memorized all the things that I was supposed to. So we can start with the engine, as we often do. It is a 451cc engine. Now, not quite a 500 actually. It went from 399 to 451, and Kawasaki chose to brand it a 500, but it's actually a 451 in there. And the engine has gotten bigger via 6.8 millimeters of stroke. So the piston travels an extra 6.8 millimeters inside the cylinder, and that's how the displacement was gained. And with that, let's actually just take a step back and talk about the things that are the same as a Ninja 400. And it's a fairly comprehensive list. The wheels are the same, the suspension's the same, the brakes are the same, the rider triangle is practically the same. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. The transmission, clutch, and exhaust are almost the same. There's a couple little tweaks there. Largely, the bike is very similar. Obviously the look's a little bit different. The fairing's a little bit wider. It has new LED lights up front, and it has that larger displacement engine. Another distinction we can make is that this is an SE model, Kawasaki Ninja 500 SE, not to be confused with the Kawasaki Ninja 500 ABS or the base non-ABS model. The SE comes with a bunch of nifty kit on there. It comes with a taller windscreen and wider. It comes with these frame sliders. It comes with these little tank protector thingamabobs there. It comes with a TFT dash that we will look into a little bit more. It comes with a keyless ignition system. What else? The seat cowl and a USB plug next to the dash, which we'll get a closer look at in a minute here. Point is, a bunch of extra kit drizzled on there. It costs an extra $500, and I don't think you get all those things for $500, so arguably worth an upgrade for the SE. We'll talk more about how all of those things affect the ride and potentially help you later on. Okay, just a couple things I'll have you take a look at while we're here in the parking lot. This cowl, there's no passenger seat, so I won't be doing a passenger test, but you can feel free to reference the Ninja 400 video and my passenger review there. Anyway, we should take a look at the seat here too, which is been redesigned for the Ninja 500, but is still quite low. It's a little bit flatter than it was. It's still a pretty heavy dip from the top of the tank to the top of the seat. That results in a fairly low seat height, which makes the bike approachable. While we're down here, this part of the bike, I can point out that the clutch springs are a little bit heavier than the Ninja 400. The gear ratios internally are slightly taller than the Ninja 400, and the exhaust outlet is bigger because the engine is a little bit bigger, for whatever that's worth. And if you're curious, the shield on the exhaust that used to hit your boot on the Ninja 400 still hits your boot on the Ninja 500. Okay, I think I've done enough talking. Let's wander up here. I got the fob in my pocket, which means I just have to push on this keyless ignition and then snap it to the right. And this little 4.3-inch TFT dash comes to life. It'll look very familiar to anyone who's ridden a modern Kawasaki. And yeah, let's fire this bad boy up, shall we? Sound kind of similar to a Ninja 400? Yeah, well, you know, it feels kind of similar to a Ninja 400 too, as we will discuss. But there are some key differences. I kind of like the new face. It's sharp, It's angry. And there's new high volume bodywork, which is a little bit wider. Kawasaki would not tell me how much wider, but there you have it. Also looking in the front here, I'm reminded that you get a radiator guard with the SE package as well. That $500 is just looking smarter and smarter, isn't it? All right. Let's ride to work, everybody. Now that we're rolling, we can talk about specs as usual. I mentioned that it weighs a little under 400 pounds. This one weighed in at 381 pounds. This Ninja 500 SE, which is, I believe, 9 pounds heavier than the Ninja 400 that we tested. That is with a full 3.7 gallons of gas in the tank. Now that we're at this red light, we can talk about the seat height, which is 30.9 inches, just under 31 inches. It is extremely approachable. You can see the bend I've got in my leg. If you're average or above average height, you're going to find this bike pretty easy to sit on, I think. Let's see, what other specs should we be talking about here? We can talk about pricing. It is $63.99 for this Ninja 500 in Kawasaki Racing Team Green. Technically, the cheapest Ninja 500 you can get, I think, is $5,300. So there's an $1,100 spread between the base bikes and this top of the line one. There is also a 40th anniversary edition, which has spicy paint and costs an extra few $100. Last couple things to cover. Kawasaki claims 51 horsepower at 10,000 RPM and 32 foot-pounds of torque or something like that. So it is a power bump of around 6 horsepower, I think, from the Ninja 400, which is not nothing. We'll talk more about how that works as we keep on riding. The riding position, as I mentioned, is practically the same, aside from the seat, which has been reshaped just a little bit. The Ninja 400 and 500 riding position in general is fairly upright. The handlebars are tucked in a little bit. It's not as sort of like broad and wide as a quote-unquote true sport bike, I would say. And more importantly, the upgrades to the seat, I think, are helpful, because the Ninja 300 and 400 platform, in my opinion, really pitched the rider forward into the fuel tank. Your crotch would get kind of caught in this little notch, a little crotch notch, if you will. The flatter seat on the Ninja 500 maintains the claimed seat height, but evens out the platform on which your sit bones sit, and that's good. Okay, in among the giants here, let's test this roll-on power of the Ninja 500, which is slightly improved from the Ninja 400, being that the engine is larger, and also larger via that addition of stroke. Adding stroke is usually what adds a little bit more torque rather than adding top-end horsepower. So that's the direction that Kawasaki went with this engine. It's the same engine that's in the Z500, of course, and the Kawasaki Eliminator, which was also covered here on Daily Rider. Out on the open road here, I can talk about one of the things that I like the most about the Ninja 500 that separates it a little bit from the Ninja 400 and the rest of the small sport bike world, in my opinion, which is this tall windscreen. It's only one of the facets of the upgraded SE package. Of course, there's the TFT, the keyless, the USB port, blah, blah, blah. But this is really practically the thing that I think makes the biggest difference rolling down the road. It is 2.5 inches taller than the base bike windscreen, which is approximately the same height as the Ninja 400 windscreen. And at 6'2", it makes a huge difference for me. It really pushes a lot of air away from my torso, leaves my shoulders and my arms out in the wind, but it kind of takes the Ninja 500, I think, from acceptable on the highway to pretty agreeable on the highway. It's actually quite comfy because of this extra wind protection. To be more specific, it is a lot more comfortable from a wind and weather protection standpoint. You still get the vibes from that little parallel twin engine pumping away in there that you got on the Ninja 400. Maybe they're a little better because the bike doesn't have to rev quite as high, but they're still there. And the riding position is pretty compact. The foot pegs are pretty high, the seat's pretty low, so there's not a ton of leg room. And of course, the suspension is not super refined or high-end. It's a very much still an entry-level motorcycle. You feel that to a certain extent, but I think, again, the windscreen, big improvement. On to the topic of fuel efficiency and range. I made a couple mentions in my article, which can be found at RevZilla.com/common tread if you're interested. about the fact that this sort of like almost feels like a little sport touring bike, and holy cow. And some people got offended by that and said it was a ridiculous thing to say, but I kind of stand by it. Like I said, it's not terribly uncomfortable on the highway, and it gets 50, 55 miles a gallon is the numbers that I saw. So a 3.7 gallon tank, you go whatever, 150, 170 miles. You can see that I got about 10 miles on this trip right now, and the bike's claiming 171 miles of range, which is adaptive for what it's worth. And because I'm on the highway and cruising along at a pretty efficient speed, the range is calculating that. If I were to start flonging it around some corners or something, it would change its mind a little bit. But still, plenty of legs for a bike in this category. While I'm in this environment, I'd like to call out another thing, which is that I rode the 2024 Kawasaki Z500, which is the naked sibling to the Ninja 500, to the Ninja 500 launch. So I rode it up there and traded it out for this bike. And I only mention that because I rode the Z500 up the freeway for a while, and then I got on a Ninja 500, and I was really impressed with how different the Ninja 500 felt on the highway compared to the Z. It's really just a lot better, in my opinion. There's the wind protection, for one. I don't think it's a lot less comfortable from a riding position standpoint. Also, the mirrors on the Z500 are just a lot worse. They're vibey. It's almost like they got voltage running through them at certain speeds. They're so vibey. And the Ninja 500 mirrors are fairly smooth. Still suffer from the same issue of the Ninja 400 mirrors, which is that they're too far away. You can see if I sit in my normal riding position and I reach my hand out, I can't touch it. I have to reach way forward, which makes the field of view a little bit small. But aside from that, yeah, they're smooth and offer pretty good rear view. It's a practical little bike at the end of the day. Kawasaki seems to have focused on some of the things that matter most to people that ride the most in the updates to the Ninja 500. That's something I really appreciate. Oh, range is up to 195 miles. What? You crazy, little Ninja. We can't go that far, can we? I guess maybe if you went like 60 the whole time. Maybe. I bet if you were really trying to just sip fuel and like hypermile this thing, you could get some crazy high numbers. Right. The stop sign challenge. How many footless stops can we get on the Ninja 500? Ooh, that's one clean one. Yeah. Not that surprising, to be honest. It is a fairly low center of gravity despite the fuel riding up here in the tank above your waistline. It's just a very kind of communicative and agreeable motorcycle in these environments. It in general is trying pretty hard to be your friend, ultimately. It's a simple cable clutch. Oh, I gotta yield to this person. I can't get my footless stop in. It's a simple little cable clutch, and it's a fairly simple fuel mapping system. There are no ride modes or anything like that. I'm thankful of that. That's the kind of simplicity that I like to see in a bike in this category. I'm going to try a footless stop in second gear. See if we can... You can see second gear is still geared pretty low. Despite this bike having slightly taller gearing, it could have taller gearing still, in my opinion. But, you know, I see where Kawasaki's going, and it's plenty dynamic, so no worries there. Now, this is an environment where having a little bit of added stroke in the displacement of the engine should add a little bit of torque, should make the bike easier to use in these environments. It is geared very low, as I mentioned, and it wasn't like the Ninja 400 was hard to ride in these scenarios. But do I think the Ninja 500 is maybe a little bit easier? Yeah, I think that that's the kind of thing that practically does help make a bike easier to ride at low speeds, and that's probably one of the benefits of making the engine bigger in that manner. Pretty good footless stops here, team. Pretty good. We roll up to this stop. I'm going to put it in neutral. I find neutral kind of hard to find, which is surprising. I don't remember that from the Ninja 400. It does still have the positive neutral finder function, whereby if you're in first gear at a stoplight, you can just yank up on the lever. It won't let you go to second gear. So like I'm trying to go to second, won't let me go to second, only lets me go to neutral, which is a feature that I never fully was on board with, really. I mean, I think it's neat, but I don't really care about it until this bike, which, especially when it's cold, is tricky to find neutral. So when you're stopped, good that the bike helps you, I guess. Right, away we go. bounced off the rev limiter right there, which reminds me that the rev limit is lower on the Ninja 500 than Ninja 400. That's one thing you get by adding stroke and displacement to an engine, is a lower rev limit. That's common. And the rev limit, I think, is 11,700 on the Ninja 500 as opposed to 12,300 on the Ninja 400. So you could argue that that's a place that the Ninja 500 gives up a little bit of dynamism and playfulness. To summarize the Ninja 500's round town manners, it is very good. Just like the Ninja 400 was very good, arguably a little better even than the Ninja 400 because of the extra torque that you get from the engine, however slight it is, and the slightly comfier seat. All right, here we are on Lover's Lane, and I can tell you that I don't think you're going to get rave reviews from passengers on the Ninja 500. This SE model, of course, comes with the passenger seat as well as the racy single seat cowl that's on there now, so I'm not going to sit back there. It's not a bike that's designed for two people to enjoy for long periods of time. I think that's pretty safe to say. But nice that it's back there, and if you want to trot across town or give someone a lift or something, they'll probably be just fine. Plus, they'll be on a Ninja, so I mean, life could be worse, am I right? Okie doke, everybody. We're dipping into the twisty road section of the Daily Rider ride, and this is a place where the Ninja 500, just like the Ninja 400 and 300 before it, really shines. It is a really fun bike to whip through a set of curves. It's light, it's direct, it's easy and playful and fun. It's great at this kind of thing, as it should be. This is the kind of real joy in motorcycling that a bike in this category needs to capture if it wants to hook people into either, you know, the Kawasaki model line, the Ninja lineup, or even just sport biking in general. This is a place where the bike needs to be good, and it's a place that this model line has delivered for many years and continues to do so in the form of the Ninja 500. And if you think I'm heaping undue compliments on the Ninja 500 in this scenario, if you think like, yeah, obviously it's good in a twisty road, it's a little sport bike, Zach, of course, like why wouldn't it be good at that kind of thing? Bear with me here. It's one thing if a Ducati Panigale V4 or BMW S1000 RR or whatever, some flagship sport bike is really good in stock form. It has adjustable suspension, it has huge braking systems on it, it has all these rider aids, blah, blah, blah. Of course, bikes like that should be good because that's what they're designed to do. But oftentimes bikes that are more budget conscious, shall we say, give up some prowess because they know that people are going to modify them anyway. And I think it's really cool that the Baby Ninja lineup has always been one that you could just like take to the racetrack in absolutely stock form. Stock tires, stock brakes, stock exhaust, stock everything. I've seen good riders on these bikes do phenomenal things on showroom condition Baby Ninjas, and I don't know if it's totally unique, but it's special and it's worth calling out as something that's excellent. The fact that you can take a base bike and just go rip around and have fun, it shouldn't be overlooked at how valuable that is. One last quick little anecdote on the topic of performance that was called out during the technical presentation of the launch of the Ninja 500, which I attended. One of the other journalists who was there said, how come there's no upside down fork? And Kawasaki said, well, first of all, it's a relatively cheap motorcycle and it's a cheaper fork, and so that's a fair thing to call out. They also pointed out that an inverted fork is actually heavier than a standard upright fork. The fork that is on the Kawasaki ZX4 RR inline 4 sport bike that Kawasaki also makes, which is a $10,000 bike, is heavier than the one that's on this one. So is that a little bit of marketing spin? Sure, maybe, but I appreciate that there's a call to simplicity within Kawasaki about what makes the bike good. Red light, let's talk about brakes. Ooh. It let me carry the back end a little bit there. This bike does have ABS, but I found neutral. Nice. Good job, Zach. It's fairly lenient. If you're a good rider and you get on the brakes really hard but not too abruptly, then yeah, it'll let you kind of carry the back tire a little bit, which is pretty cool, I think. I don't know, it's a Nissan caliper. Yeah, it's just sort of basic stuff, but it's pretty good. I think we got time to talk about the dash. Let's do that. This is the standard issue 4.3-inch TFT from Kawasaki. There are no controls on the switchgear for it. You control it all via these two buttons here. I think if you hold down this button on the side here, maybe, Oh, I just changed it from day mode to night mode. Maybe if you hold both buttons. Does that do it? There we go. Now we're in the menu here, and you can go into vehicle settings and that kind of thing. It's a little too complicated a menu, in my opinion, to handle entirely with these two buttons, but it's undeniably a cool upgrade from the base bike, which has a little two-color LCD thingamajig. And I think all the stuff on the main screen is laid out really nicely. Ooh, range is at 240 now. You are bold. Anyway, here's the little USB plug on the side there. Kind of a nice spot for it. So if you mount your phone with nav and whatever, it'll connect and power from the dash, which is a nice feature in my opinion. And to boot, of course, this fancy dash involves the ability to connect via Bluetooth. So you can use the Kawasaki app, track your ride, stuff like that. You can be cynical and kind of bored or not excited about that kind of thing, which is totally fair if that's how you feel. But it's undeniably a feature that's been added to a bike that is also undeniably affordable and near the bottom of the pricing ladder. Sometimes in this section of the ride we talk about whether or not the bike's worth buying for the engine alone. And in the context of this bike, I think it's important to answer the question of whether or not this engine is really that much better than the Ninja 400, because that's pretty clearly the engine that it compares closest to. I would have to say no. I like this engine. I think it's good. I don't have like a lot of complaints, but I don't know that it really serves a huge purpose that the Ninja 400 did not. So a lot of talk on this ride about the upgrades and features of the Ninja 500, and of course how it compares to the Ninja 400. I mentioned in the beginning that we talk about the ways that it has furthered the reputation of the Baby Ninja lineup and the ways that it separates itself as a new model. The way that it has furthered the reputation is it's largely the same as the Ninja 400, which was a great little bike, and this is also a great motorcycle. It's easy to ride, it's fun, it's approachable, it looks cool, it does all the things that a little sport bike should do. And I appreciate that so much. In a lot of ways, it's just sort of like a little quarter step in the same direction that the Ninja 400 was already moving, which was in general a very positive direction. How then, you might ask, has it separated itself and how is it different? I think the big thing is the addition of all these sort of premium features. The TFT dash with Bluetooth connectivity, the USB port, the fact that there's an SE model that comes with frame sliders and all this mumbo jumbo. I think that tying that upgrade into a slightly larger engine that has a lower rev ceiling is starting to creep toward a bike that is premium but also different generally than a small bike should be. I don't think that this is a full departure, and that's important, but I don't want to see the smallest Ninja available on showroom floors keep having a lower rev ceiling and keep having more sophisticated features. I like very much that there's still a Ninja 500 base bike that has a standard dash and doesn't have any of the features built into it that are trying to make it too premium. I like the simplicity and I like the high revving character, and I don't think that the Ninja 500 is worse, but it moves laterally in a direction that I'm not sure is quite as true to the small sport bike as the Ninja 400 was. But more importantly, what does it feel like on a dirt road? The chairs are still available if you want them. No ride modes, like I said, so we can just kind of trundle down here and see how it goes. I don't really remember what my experience was on the Ninja 400, but let's see how the 500 does. Yeah, the tires are not going to love this surface very much. It's going to be a little bit bumpy on the rocks. And the handlebars are jumping around in my hands. It's a little bit like those videos of a cat falling into a bathtub where it's just like trying not to touch its feet too much. Skating around here. All right. If you want to ride a Ninja 500 down a dirt road, of course, it'll work, of course. The nice thing about this engine is that it's revvy and peppy and interesting, but it's not so powerful that it's going to just throw you off, It's got a pretty even-keeled manner about it. Is it the best Ninja for a dirt road? Actually, I just thought of that. Maybe, huh? It might be the best Ninja for riding down a dirt road. Never really occurred to me. That's quite a title to hold. All right, let's see if this car can do a wheelie, and I'm going to try second gear. What do you think? Can we do second gear? Look at that! Whoa! Second gear, third gear. Woo-hoo-hoo! Whoa, baby! Wow! Yeehaw! The old Ninja 500 wheelie, pulling it up in second gear, riding it out. Yeehaw! I mean, you know, I use the word true sport bike to describe, you know, a motorcycle that's not a Ninja 500 earlier. But a true sport bike should be able to wheelie, and by gosh, Ninja 500 can do a wheelie. I got a lot of respect for that. And so the question of can you back it in? Yes, you can. It's actually pretty agreeable for that kind of hooliganism, because the ABS is not too intrusive, in my opinion, and it has a slipper clutch that works pretty well, which is a smart thing to have on any sort of beginner-focused motorcycle. And if you drop down some gears and dump the clutch, it's a hoot. A hoot, I tell you. Great. All right, U-turn challenge, which is happening between the increasing population of ruined security vehicles that live in our parking lot. I don't know why that is. We only got 2 spaces, so we're gonna have to be about it. Full lock, left feet up. Here we go. Can we do it? Ha ha ha. Yes, very good. Within the 2 parking spaces, that's pretty good. It's small, it's agile, short wheelbase, decent turning radius. It's a cool little bike, everybody. Cool little bike. All right, let's listen to it rev up, shall we? Not my favorite sound in the world of motorcycling, if I'm being honest, but it is the sound of a willing partner. You know, when I hear that sound, sometimes you're on the highway or you're in a cafe or something, you hear the sound of a little parallel twin go zzz, and I don't love the way it sounds objectively, but in my head I think, oh, I bet that's a Ninja 300, I bet that's a Ninja 400, or I bet that's a little Yamaha R3 or whatever. And that makes me happy because I'm like, I bet that person's having a blast. All right, let's answer some Instagram questions. First question is from Andy Knuckles. Andy says, is there any point to a full fairing and clip-ons at this performance level? Seems like it would be more credible as a naked. This is a fair thing to point out, right? Why bother have streamlined bodywork that looks like it can go 200 miles an hour when you only have 50 horsepower? And kind of what's the point? The reason I saved this question has something to do with what I talked about riding the Z500 and the Ninja 500 back to back and thinking that this bike was a little bit better. And that's a weird trick to pull off, because normally the naked bike version of the sport bike is better, in my opinion. I mean, Z650 versus Ninja 650, I'd take a Z650. Ducati Street Fighter V2 versus Panigale V2, I'm taking a Street Fighter V2 all day. Tuono versus RSV4 Aprilia, I'm taking a Tuono. I think it's often the case that the naked bike is better because it's just a little bit more practical. Somehow, the Ninja, to me, feels more practical than the Z, which is odd. To answer your question, Andy, yes, there is a point to a full fairing clip-ons at this performance level because the clip-ons are high and it's actually pretty comfortable, and the fairing pushes more weather and wind away from you than the naked bike does. Plus, the mirrors are better. Next question is from Dano Champ, who says, is it becoming a concern that today's beginner bikes are faster than the typical, quote, big bike of yesteryear? Yeah, this is an ongoing discussion and concern with all motorcyclists of every shape and size. And are we worried that the little bikes are too fast? It's notable, right, that bikes keep getting bigger. In fact, there's an article on Common Tread called Displacement Creep, When is Too Big Too Much, or something like something to do with displacement creep, and it addresses all these things that have happened over the years and what it all means. As far as this bike, is it too fast? No, definitely not. Don't worry about that. Next question is from Kelly Hubbard, who asks, how does it compare to the CF Moto 450 or the older Ninja 400? There were lots of questions about how the 500 compares to the 400. Hopefully I've addressed most of those at this point. As for the CF Moto 450 or the Aprilia RS 457 or the KTM RC 390, these are all machines about which you all asked. And how do they compare? I'm not exactly sure. there is a comparison article between a Ninja 400 and a CF Moto 450 on the Common Tread website as well, written by my friend Ari Henning, that talks about how the bikes feel different, how they sound different, and how they are built different. Most of that would apply to this bike as well, so that's going to be your best resource for that question. Next question is from Ken Remy, who asks, what mods would you imagine would improve the Ninja 500 as a daily ride? Heated grips, bigger windscreen. The bigger windscreen's been covered. Heated grips always make a bike better. I mean, come on. What would it make it better as a daily rider? For me, a taller seat. But, you know, I get why it's slow, so I'm not complaining. I could go for a quick shifter. That might be a little treat that I would give myself, because I think this is a bike that, when it has a quick shifter on it, is rewarding and fun, because it revs pretty high, and it's just sort of like the attitude of the bike kind of wants that. So that's one thing. But aside from that, I don't know. I'm not sure what else. It's pretty good as is. Next question is from Lost Cartographer, who asks, if the Ninja 300, 400, 500, and the 650 were all inside a burning building and you could save only one, which one would you pick? I mean, it's a fairly simple question at the root of it, like which one's the best bike, but I like the creativity. It would be a Ninja 500, because I do think, especially the SE model, it's just nicer. The dash is nice, the USB plug is nice, the frame sliders are nice, the big windscreen is nice, the radiator guard is nice. It's well built, and it's built out to really draw people in to upgrading to the SE model, and I think it's a great bike. My quick caveat is that I'll say, if I had to go in and save the attitude, the like core values and the emotion evoked from one of the bikes in the burning building, the Ninja 300, 400, 500, or 650, it would be a 400, I think. It just like revs so high, and it's just so simple and innocent, and just has such good energy about it. This bike moves in a slightly more mature direction, which I think makes it a better daily rider, but the really captivating energy of the 400 is something I would have trouble ignoring. Last question is from Chris Cotner, who asked, if this was a Ninja Turtle, which one would it be? This is a great question. I love this question. So Leonardo was kind of the leader, right? Blue mask. And then you got Michelangelo, who is the freewheeling one, right? Like, oh, kick flips and bong reps, dude. And then there's Donatello, purple mask. I don't really remember what his personality traits were. And then Raphael, of course, is the sort of like brooding, moody one who's like, oh, why is the sky blue and why do I feel this way? Which Ninja Turtle would the Ninja 500 be? I'm going Leonardo. It's a Leonardo. It's the leader of the small bike category. Is it the most capable? Is it the most fierce? Is it the true king of capability? I don't know. There are lots of other bikes, especially this year, that are bubbling to the surface that might sort of try to take the Ninja 500's crown. But as it stands, if any sport bike wants to become king of the category, it has to take down the Ninja 500. And if you want to capture the attention of the Ninja Turtles, you go after Leonardo, right? Leonardo's the leader. So the only other thing I'll say is a quick call out to the person who said that this is Splinter of the Ninja Turtles, which I don't think is fair, but it is funny. All right, enough cartoon talk. Let's get the sucker inside and put it on the Daily Rider leaderboard. Stick with me.
Here we go, everybody. Into RevZilla West and the Daily Rider leaderboard, we have a Kawasaki Ninja 500 SE, remember? Ready to go on the board. Friendly reminder of where we stand here in 2024. We've got a KTM 890 SMT up top, followed by a Moto Guzzi V100 Mandello and a BMW M1000R in third place. It's a European lockout of the podium right now. The 2023 board, as a reminder, the first four bikes were Japanese, and then finally a Triumph. So, you know, it's topsy-turvy here on the 2024 charts. Getting back to the Ninja 500 and where it falls on the leaderboard. It's an outlier, really, on this board in so much as it is small and particularly approachable. I'm not going to call it a beginner bike, really, because I don't think that's fair. It is good for beginners, but it's also good for other people. So I don't think it's really fair to kind of like pigeonhole it in that way necessarily. It's a little bit of a knife to a gunfight when you say, like, is it better than a Kawasaki Z900 SE? Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, it does have some advantages over a Z900, but really the Z900 is just fast and comprehensively capable, and it do anything a Ninja 500 will do basically, except look like a sport bike, which I don't really know if that counts. And, you know, same goes for the bikes above it. Those bikes are just really like fast, characterful, rich experiences on two wheels. And the Ninja 500 is super fun and super capable and a great motorcycle, but it's not in with a shout at the podium, I'm afraid. So looking down the chart a little bit in that case, is it better than a Ducati Hyper 698 mono? Would I rather take a Ninja 500 to work on my commute than a Hyper 698? No, I would rather take a Hyper. I mean, that bike is just so much fun. Hence the giggle badge, right? If I'm making wholesale recommendations, you gotta recommend the Ninja 500 over a Hyper 698. It just makes more sense. It's gonna be more comfortable, it's gonna be better, it's got better range, blah, blah, blah. Triumph Scrambler 1200X. It sounds good, it looks good, it feels good. Just apart from a couple little mistakes that were made on the engineering side with the Triumph Scrambler 1200X, it is a terrifically engaging and useful and fun motorcycle, as is the Ninja 500, but not quite as much so. Here we go. On the board here, it's gonna go above the Hyper 698 mono and below the Scrambler 1200X. And if you have a problem with that, I wouldn't blame you. Honestly, I just feel like context is important. And hopefully on this daily ride on the Ninja 500 SE, you got that context of why it's such a good bike and why it might have its limitations when stacked up against bikes that have more power, more features, and a little bit more capability. So there you have it. A daily rider on the Kawasaki Ninja 500 SE. I hope you feel like you understand the bike. I hope you'll ride safe the next time you do so. And I very much hope to see you next time on Daily Rider. See you later, everybody.
Whoop. How many times have you done the stop sign, Zach, to miss it? I screwed up the full stop anyway. Watch out, squirrel. Watch out. All right, here we are on Lover's Lane. We avoided killing that squirrel, which is nice. And I can tell you that I don't think